So let's talk a little. All right, remind me, what are the rules that we have that you know? Like anything raised to 0 power is, y'all quit telling me a 0. 1, okay? And you can also check this too. If you forget, go into Desmos, plug in 1 to the 0 power, it'll tell you it's 1, right? Okay. What's another one? How about this? If I had x to the b divided by x to the a, what would that give me? What would I do with the exponents here? Subtract, so b minus a, right? Okay. If I had x to the a times x to the b, what would I do? Add them. Okay. If I had x to the a raised to the b, what would I do with these? A power to the power means we're going to power up and multiply. Yeah, a times b. Okay, cool. So looking at this first one, another thing that we also have in our back pocket is we have x raised to the exponent divided by the index. Okay, so I can rewrite this as the index in the little cubby hole, x to the exponent. With me? So on this first one, did you say true or false? Yeah. Okay, so talk me through what we were gonna do. We want to have this written the same way as this, right? Like that's our goal. We're trying to see if these are equal. So just take this left side. If we take this exponent is going to go where? Inside the radical, right? Okay, so we got x to the, and the exponent is the top one. So that's going to be to the 5th. And then we've got the cubic root that's going to be in that little cubby hole. Why do you say it's false? Right, it's flipped, right? And that would only be if we had a negative. And we don't have a negative. Okay, so there is no negative. Okay. On the next one, we have a power raised to a power. So what are we going to do? We have a power raised to a power. What are we going to do? Multiply. Okay, so if we multiply, then that means that we're going to be 1/2 times 3/2. So that's going to give me 3/4. So now we have y raised to the 3/4. We're going to do the same thing that we did on the last one. We're going to put y to the 3rd power, and we're taking the 4th root of it. Is that the same thing that they have over here? Yeah. Okay, the last one always freaks everybody out. So looking at this last one, I'm going to write it in here so you can actually see it. We're going to take this kind of like piece by piece. So we're just going to look at the top part. Okay, we have all these things raised to the 1/2 power. Well, if we have a power raised to a power, what are we going to do? Multiply, right? So 64 raised to the 1/2 power. We learned back in the very first part of this that 64 raised to the 1/2 power is the same thing as taking the square root of 64, right? So what's the square root of 64? Oh, an 8, yeah. Okay, so this is going to be 8 in the top. And then we have x raised to the 3rd raised to the 1/2. So we're just going to multiply those exponents. So that's going to be x to the 3/2. We've got y to the 4th raised to the 1/2 power. That's going to be y to the 2nd. We see that there's this x to the negative 1/2. We're going to take that. We're going to put that one on the top. Okay, if we ever see a negative, we're going to flip it to the other side. And then we're going to leave everything else alone for a second. So all I did was I took the power and raised it to the power. So I multiplied here. Now I can kind of combine like terms. Do you see up on the top, there are x's here, okay? So I can combine those x's by adding 3/2 to 1/2. If I add 3/2 to 1/2, what do I get? What's 3 plus 1? Divided by 2? Okay, so we got 8x to the second power, y to the second power, and then x to the 3/2, y to the 5th. And we're actually going to leave this x to the second power. We're going to leave it as 4/2. And you'll see why in just a second. Now we have something in the top, something in the bottom. So what are we going to do with the exponents? What are we going to do with the exponents? Subtract, right? So we got 4/2 minus 3/2. That's going to give me 1/2. And y to the second minus y to the 5th. That's going to give me y to the -3rd. So we're going to put that guy on the bottom. So is this the same thing as this? Is the blue the same? Here and here. Why are you saying not really? It doesn't have the square root. But what do we know about x to the 1/2 power? Okay, look up at the top. What do we do? X to the 1/2 power. It's the same thing as taking the square root, right? Okay, so this is going to be true. Bracket or all right, so I want to go through some things that are going to be on your test. So there are 2 different AKS that you're going to see. Okay, you've got AKS 20, and then you're going to also have AKS, I think it's like 31. The number 31, 34, 35. Okay, so we got AKS 20, and then we got AKS 31, 34, 35. Okay. On AKS 20, you're going to have one on solving radicals. It's going to ask, like, what is the solution to this? Okay. Remember, if it's a multiple choice question, all you're going to do is take your answer and plug in. Okay. On the next one, they're going to have something called literal equation. This is the one that's going to probably freak you out because it's got a lot of reading. They're just trying to confuse you. All you need to do is, let's say you had something like, this, and I said, solve for y, okay? Your goal would be to get rid of everything and get y by itself. Now, obviously, this is not the same problem that you're getting, but it would be to isolate that. If you struggle with like moving things around on solving equations, maybe look up literal equations on Khan Academy tonight. That might help. Okay. The next one is going to be another like solving radical. And all you're going to do is plug in. Please make sure that you pay attention to if there's like an answer choice, like for instance, they have 4 as an answer choice and then they have 4 and 7. Make sure that 4 and 7 both work before you pick that. Don't just pick 4 if it just works, because it might be both of those. Okay, so check all solutions. And then there is an error analysis question. It's looking at, oh no, sorry, take that back. This question asks for which one has no solution. How do we know that something's not going to have a solution without having to solve? How do we know that a radical is going to have no solution without having to solve? If you ever have something like this, if you ever have a radical plus some number equal to 0, because what's going to happen is that first number that you move over is going to make it a negative number, right? And that's going to automatically produce a no solution. Okay, the next one is going to be a solve, and you're just going to plug in. And then the last one is an error analysis. Sorry, I'm writing down at the bottom of the pool. Okay, so in this section alone, there are 6 questions. 35 on this one. The first question is going to ask you about the equation and what the number on the outside represents. And it's going to be a word problem. Okay, you have to read. Okay. But it's going to ask you about part of the equation. Okay. Can't really give you much more than that on that. On the next one, it's going to ask you about the graph of a function. And so they'll give you the graph. This one y'all struggled with on the CFA. I'm not really understanding why. Remember, plug it into Desmos, find which one matches up. When they tell you that you have the square root of x, they're going to give you that graph. And then they're going to give you another function, and that's going to be the dotted line. Maybe that's where we were messing up. Okay. Okay, the next one asks about domain and context. What's up, babe? Yes. The next one is domain and context. Remember, we can't have negative numbers in that domain in context. There's no negative numbers. Okay. The next one is going to ask what interval will be valid. Okay, and if you're not sure about all this stuff, go back to your 4B review guide with those word problems on the back. Very similar questions. The next one is asking about in behavior. Again, that's from your 4B review guide. The next one asks about decreasing. And the last one is asking you to write the equation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 questions. So you have 2 Delta Maths due tomorrow. Most of you have not even started on those Delta Maths. Okay, so I'm going to give you time in class right now to work on that. My people who are missing their CFAs, let me see hands. Fantastic. Say again? Yes, go ahead. I heard, can I go get a 6-piece? I was like,